Hello there guys, and welcome back to the second part of my top 11 games of 2019 video series. If you haven't seen part 1, click the link in the top right corner or check the link out in the description below, and be sure to go watch it to catch yourselves up. I'll even give you a little bit of time. Alright, no drawn out intro, it is time to get things rolling, but before we get into this video, I just want to reply to a few quick comments in the first part of this series. Many of you guys guessed that I'd be putting Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in my top 5 for this year, and I'm assuming that's because many of you have seen that it was nominated for an award at the Game Awards, and thus you assume it would be on this year's list. Well, I'm gonna direct you guys to my top 5 games of 2018 list, links in the top right corner in the description. Might want to watch that one first, then get back to me. Anyway, without further ado, let us begin. At number 5, we have From Software's latest masterpiece, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Made by the creators of the Dark Souls series and Bloodborne, I remember being pretty hyped for the game pre-release. I remember seeing it at E3 2018 and being very excited by the trailers, and the promise of a new gameplay style that gave players more freedom in how they tackled the world had me very intrigued. Suffice it to say, Sekiro delivers on all fronts with a masterful gameplay loop that kept me sucked in for quite some time. The combat is fast-paced and exhilarating, but not like Bloodborne's aggressive combat where you were rewarded for hacking your enemies to bits. Here in Sekiro, it was more methodical, like the various enemies were performing a complex dance of sword swings, parries, and dodges, adding the ability to actively stealth kill enemies, including bosses as well, and you have quite the variety of options at your disposal to take your enemies out. Sekiro is a brilliant character to control thanks to his great maneuverability and his shinobi prosthetic, which allows him to grapple all across the various locations in the game, and he can equip his arm with various shinobi tools such as firecrackers, shuriken, metallic hat shields, spears, and so much more. There was a lot of customization to choose from in regards to how you fight, allowing for players to play how they wanted, provided you understand the parrying mechanic, which is vital to succeed once you get into the late game. Sekiro makes sure to let you know, however, that while it does share some aspects of the Souls series with itself in terms of its world design and the ability to walk between areas, it is a single-player experience first and foremost. There are no multiplayer mechanics. You play as a set character, you're not designing your own shinobi here. It's as if From Software took the gameplay they were known for but gave the main character the Nathan Drake treatment, making him a real person and not just a player stand-in that you customize at the start of the game. Weirdly enough, some people took issue with this because they were so used to the Soulsborne customization options, but in my mind, tough shit. We don't bring this up when we play as Mario in a Mario game or Link in a Zelda game. This isn't a negative, and people need to stop acting like it is. One point that sticks in my mind when thinking about memorable moments from this game, though, is the approach to the gun fort in the Sunken Valley. Leaping from tree and cliff across a snowy chasm of danger while being fired at with guns by the many enemies from the fort, or my encounter with the first boss that started with quite the entrance on his part.
My name is Kyobu Masataka Oniwa!
With the game's focus on parrying, they introduced a posture bar that both Sekiro and the enemies around him come equipped with. Raise the posture bar to its limits and you stagger the opponent, or are staggered yourself. It becomes an intense game of figuring out which enemies are better to stagger and which are better to simply deplete their HP. Combine this with the 3 different skill trees that teach you new abilities, and you're looking at a game that will keep you on your toes the entire time. The game also looks amazing. The graphics are beautiful, the area designs are stunning, though it's worth noting there is less in terms of variety of area compared to past games, due to the game being grounded in a more realistic location overall. Though there is one late game area that is absolutely breathtaking, just stunning. The only reason this game for me is at number 5 and not higher is because I haven't beaten the full game yet. I've put a lot of hours into it though, in comparison to most games on this list, and I will be beating Sekiro when I get some free time. but it is a worthy From Software title that makes me hyped for any of their future content and certainly deserved a spot in the top 5. You can play Sekiro Shadows Die Twice on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or PC. Moving its way into the number 4 spot, we have Ring Fit Adventure, Nintendo's surprise hit of the year that finally manages to blend the excitement of video games and the tediousness of exercising in a way that doesn't scare away gamers. Long gone are the days of Wii Sports and Wii Fit, for now a true giant in the world of getting fit has arrived, and Ring Fit Adventure is here to stay. With its focus on giving you an actual workout, complete with various different exercises that focus on your arms, legs, core, and yoga respectively, you'll be finding yourself aching in areas you never knew could ache, all thanks to the amazing Ringcon, a glorified Pilates ring that helps ease you into the world of Ring Fit. It's also very well made, able to withstand intense pressure, so it's not going to break easily either. The game is one of the best fitness games out there. Not only does it respect your time, but it also provides you with enough information and enough content that you're getting a full workout each time. From the dynamic stretches at the start, which limber you up for the task at hand, to the cooldown stretches that will focus on the part of your body that was worked during your workout, to the various stay hydrated and make sure to take break messages that ensure nobody goes overboard. This game is here to help, although it does come with a slight issue that because you don't have a personal trainer to correct your posture, there is a chance you could be doing certain exercises wrong, or you may be bending your back when you're not supposed to, etc, etc, so just be aware of that. The story mode, however, is what we're all here for. A fully fledged fitness RPG where you go from level to level, progressing across each course by jogging on the spot, using knee lifts to go upstairs, pushing or pulling the Ringcon to get through obstacles and suck up coins, and in later levels there are way more intense exercises such as rowing a boat, squatting to use boost pads, and just all sorts of other things that make level traversal feel great. And each course is beautiful to look at, with pleasing music playing throughout, even if in the early game some courses are reused across different worlds, but I hear that's not an issue as you progress further in. The graphics feel like a mix between Breath of the Wild and The Witness, and for a fitness game, yeah, it works. The colors pop and the vibrant nature of the game, as well as the memorable character designs, keep the story from feeling like filler, because it's a full RPG, guys. You will level up, gain stat buffs, earn new powers and abilities, have to plan what moves to take on what mission. Trust me, you're going to be heavily invested. With 23 entire worlds to explore and a New Game Plus mode, you're getting your workout. You are getting your workout here. Fitness battles are the main workout though. You'll enter a battle, select one of your 6 chosen workouts for each course, then perform a various amount of reps for each workout to do damage to your opponents. You can ab guard to block damage, drink smoothies in battle for attack bonuses or extra health, and you can take your time. You can do each of these workouts at your own pace. The game won't force you to do it in a certain time. Though, I would recommend taking the yoga poses slowly. They do more damage that way. Now, I could go on and on about this title, but you already know how much I love this game, and if you have ever wanted to go out and get fit but don't have access to a gym, this game will definitely trick your brain into enjoying exercise. It certainly tricked me. I even did a video on it very recently. Links in the top right corner and in the description. However, it doesn't crack my top 3. You can play Ring Fit Adventure exclusively on the Nintendo Switch. Alright, before I reveal my top 3, I will say the next 2 games I had a very hard time deciding between which one went third and which one went second. Both of them are remakes of games from the past. Both of them did an amazing job and remaking the games they came from. But ultimately, I came to a decision. At number 3, we have my favorite Nintendo game of the year, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening for the Nintendo Switch. For those of you not in the know, my first ever Zelda game was Link's Awakening DX, a title that stuck with me from the time I first played it on my Game Boy for its ability to give us an entire Zelda title on a handheld. This game was ahead of its time, with a whole 8 dungeons to explore, side quests to complete, tons of collectibles to find, as well as having one of the best self-contained stories in the series to date, with the fate of Koholint Island, as well as the entire arc of Best Girl Marin. We got a full Zelda game on a Game Boy without any actual Princess Zelda. It was insane. And then, this year, 2019, the remake came along and blew our minds, bringing the 2D top-down Zelda to the forefront with a beautifully reimagined Koholint Island, which, while it got a graphical overhaul, has the same layout it always had. The toy diorama aesthetic did take its time for me to warm up to, but I've since come to appreciate that it's honestly the perfect style for Link's Awakening to be housed on. And the quality of life improvements to the game have certainly made this the definitive edition of Link's Awakening. Not having to enter your inventory every 5 seconds makes world traversals so much less of a hassle now that your sword and shield are attached to specific buttons. The game not bombarding you with messages about how you can't lift rocks if you so much as brush against one is a game changer. Extra warp points being placed around Koholint makes getting through the island so much easier, even if the map itself is still fairly small in comparison to most Zelda titles. I still don't think Yana Desert's that much of a desert though, and I will stand by that to the end, since I felt that even when I was a kid. But overall, this world has been fully realized in the modern day, and that makes me so happy. The animations for the various characters, especially Link, are precious and perfect. The way characters react to various situations with so much life and vigor makes the ending of the game impact you all the more, as these characters are now more than just pixels on a Game Boy screen. But for me, what I was most excited about with this remake, and what brings it to the top tier region for me, is the soundtrack. This music has been composed in a way that feels respectful to the original music from the Game Boy, but is also its own unique beast. Telltale Heights is always going to be a favorite of mine, and the Face Shrine theme is still just as foreboding as it ever was, but they weren't afraid to take genuine risks with the music, and some of the tracks are hit or miss, but I respect that. Animal Village is a far cry from its original incarnation, and I personally adore it. But above all else, getting to hear very memorable tracks such as the Ballad of the Windfish once more moved me in a way I never expected. When I streamed this game recently, I found myself tearing up at Marin just singing Ballad of the Windfish. That got me. And even the music you get when you collect the full moon cello from Tail Cave made me tear up. It was those sorts of moments that made this remake feel very special to me. Oh, and then they went and gave the Ballad of the Windfish lyrics in the trailers leading up to the game, and I just started sobbing at that point. It's a real shame those versions of the song never made it in-game. They were just promotional material, but that doesn't mean I can't still adore them. Now, it would be remiss of me to not mention the chamber dungeons that were added in with the new game, and I am obligated to discuss them as they are a new feature to the game and part of the selling point for this remake. So, let me discuss my hot take. They are completely optional and are not required to beat the game, and thank fuck for that, the end. A Zelda Waker would be amazing, but this ain't it, chief. Now, the only reason this game is number 3 on my list and not number 2 is simply that it is still the same game from my childhood, and it's amazing, but the next game I'm talking about effectively overhauled everything in the best way possible, and I'm sure you all know what it is. You can play The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening exclusively for the Nintendo Switch. Alright, some of you may have figured this out already, but my number 2 spot is going to the first new game I actually played from 2019, way back in January. Yes, it's the Resident Evil 2 remake. Words cannot describe how excited I was to finally get to experience the story of Resident Evil 2 with my own hands, as I wasn't old enough to experience the original back on the PlayStation 1, and with the Resident Evil series having recently been hitting it out of the park with Resident Evil 7 bringing the games back to their roots, my love for horror needed to be sated and I was ready. And this game did that in spades. For such a long time, zombie horror has been oversaturated, and I felt for the longest time that they were becoming stale, that they simply weren't scary anymore. Resident Evil 2 Remake proved me very, very wrong. The zombies in this title are durable, able to withstand multiple bullets to the head. They move deceptively fast, are able to ambush the player, and cause major damage with just a few hits. The survival in survival horror is brought back in full force with this title. Not once did I feel like I had control of my situation. I felt like I was scavenging items and escaping every deadly situation just barely with my life intact. Inventory management became a matter of life and death. Finding a new hip pouch would be the biggest accomplishment. Scouting out another room of the map felt like I was making major progress. Yet the oppressive atmosphere of the title never gave me a moment to breathe, and I loved it. You had various ways to defend yourself with your weapons that you find in the RPD, consumable items like grenades, flashbangs, and knives. You have your usual herb mixtures to keep your health going. The gunpowder mechanic from Resident Evil 7 returns, allowing you to craft ammo. You have boards which can be placed on open windows to stop those cheeky little zombies from getting in. You've got a lot of options to keep you safe, and of course these save rooms all return, giving you a quick safe haven and a little reprieve if you need to keep yourself and calm yourself down. Beyond the gameplay though, has anyone ever talked about how gorgeous this game is? The characters look effortlessly lifelike, to the point where certain shots looked like genuine live action. The locations and the lighting especially add an extra layer of depth to this title, as the graphics are able to immerse you into Raccoon City. And don't get me started on how good the sound design is. This Resident Evil engine looks glorious, and knowing that it's coming back for Resident Evil 3 Remake makes me even more excited than ever. But let's be real, while we all know this is a perfect Resident Evil game, aside from a few story inconsistencies between routes, there is one aspect of this game that had me reeling from its original reveal, and we all know what it is. Mr. X. The tyrant that stalks you throughout the RPD and beyond. His presence in the station is felt when he breaks all the conventional laws of the original game, entering the main hall, which was once a sacred safe place. The way his footsteps echo and pound across the station, the sound design, his theme tune kicking in the moment he spots you, with one of my favorite compositions of music from this year. Black Impact will haunt my nightmares. This fucker was the best part of the game for me, and it wasn't even close. And both main characters also have two different campaigns, an A side and a B side, depending on who you choose to play as first, with all of their campaigns having different moments, sometimes different puzzles, different companions who will help you out in Sherry and Ada, each who also have their own extra missions midway through the game, and more. The sheer amount of content in this game almost makes you forget that it's a remake of a PlayStation 1 title, and given how it plays with your expectations only to subvert them at every turn, this is what a horror remake should be. And it has tofu mode, so it just makes it even more better. Resident Evil 3 Remake really can't come any sooner. You can check out my full thoughts on this title though, with my So I Just Finished Resident Evil 2 video that got criminally underwatched in my opinion. Links in the top right corner and in the description below. I put a lot of effort into it, please give it a watch. You can play Resident Evil 2 Remake on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or PC. And so, another list comes to an end, and my game of the year for 2019 must be crowned. When I decide my game of each year, I have to weigh two different factors. One is the game's overall quality, and two, how that game resonated with me on a personal level. It's how in 2017, Hollow Knight was able to beat Breath of the Wild. It's how Smash Ultimate was simply unmatched in 2018, or how Bloodborne was able to topple the likes of Undertale in my 2015 list. And for me, this top pick resonated with me better than any of the other games on this list. And it's not going to be everybody's game of the year. I'm actually well aware of that. This is going to be an unpopular opinion. But my game of the year for 2019 is... Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. The sole reason for Rule 2 of this video, me allowing expansions onto this list, is for this game. The story, gameplay, and style of Final Fantasy XIV's third expansion was simply too much for me to ignore. In 2017, I started playing Final Fantasy XIV way back when Stormblood was released. I loved the game, got pretty addicted to it, and then I dropped off after beating the main story. And then, this year, Shadowbringers was announced. While I wasn't originally sure on what to make of it, I decided to come back to the game and went into the expansion with barely any knowledge and a thirst to discover what was going on in the world of the first. And little did I know, I was about to be hit with one of the best Final Fantasy experiences in over a decade. Shadowbringers tells the tale of a world ravaged by creatures of light known as Sin Eaters, who emerged after the world was flooded by light prior to the events of the game. We, the player, take up the role of the Shadowbringer, and are tasked with bringing an end to the endless light that plagues the land, returning the night sky to the people of Northrend. It's a very simple premise that goes far deeper than anyone ever thought it would, and takes itself to places we just never expected it to go. We get my favorite villain of the year in the enigmatic Ascian, Emmett Selk, who effectively makes the player feel bad for the Ascian race, which, for those of you who don't know, is a group that the characters have been fighting since before the first expansion of Final Fantasy XIV. They're basically one of the real big bads of the game, and it's a pretty big deal that we're finally finding them sympathetic. The cinematic cutscenes and the storytelling are beyond brilliant, and the final few hours are some of the most impactful gaming moments I have ever experienced. Since Final Fantasy XIV is an MMO, we got new dungeons, trials, and raids to contend with all of them being pretty enjoyable throughout. We got some fun new classes to try out, and my current class, the Bard, got some new abilities that I really enjoy. There aren't any real duds at all to contend with. The 3 base story trials were excellent, and all 3 of them were extremely satisfying fights to learn. The Eden raids were a love letter to fans of Final Fantasy VIII, and while I haven't played since the first set of raids came out, because look, affording a subscription every month is kind of expensive, I did hear that some Nier Automata raids were added into the game, so that's fun too. The world of the first is just so different from what we've ever had before though. The purple eaves of Lakeland, the barren wastes of Armoreng, the tribal Aztec Raktika Greatwood. The 6 new areas added in this expansion were all memorable and exciting to explore, and most importantly, they were different from each other, because Stormblood had this issue where 3 of the areas were set in the same rocky mountainous location, and it just wasn't very fun. Whereas Shadowbringers they brought it. They came and they brought it. They snatched my weave, they brought it. Without a doubt though, the best part of this expansion, and the best part of most games for me, was the soundtrack. I don't know what happened, but Masayoshi Soken, the composer for this game, he absolutely snapped, and he snapped hard, because there can be made a case for this being one of the best video game OSTs of all time. I haven't found myself so invested in wanting to beat a story like Shadowbringers in years. The twists, the turns, the struggle, the extremely dark take on the world you're in, and the severity of the situation just makes everything you're doing feel all the more impactful. People are affected everywhere by grief and loss, and you are helping to rebuild a fractured world after all. I could talk more about this game, but instead, I'll suggest you go and watch my review of the game, links in the top right corner or the description below. You can play Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers on Windows, PS3, or PS4. Though be aware this is an expansion, and you will need to complete all previous expansions and the base game to access it, or buy a story skip, but the story is sort of important, so don't do that. Just buy a job skip instead. That being said, if you don't enjoy story, you're not going to get as much out of this, so yeah. That's why it's going to be a controversial Game of the Year pick, but it is my Game of the Year. And with that, we have come to the end of my top 11 games of 2019 list. What did you think of my list overall? What games were your favorites of the year? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I am aware there was one game I didn't include, not even in the honorable mentions, which was Super Mario Maker 2, because if I'm going to be completely honest, I just don't like Mario Maker. Just don't enjoy it. Anyway, next week I will be back with a podcast video with myself, Mitch, and Rick, my fellow The High Ground members from the Nox Squad Game Show, to talk about our top games of the decade. It was Rick's idea, not mine. It's going to be a good time. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next week, and goodbye.